Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of the Fork Fix podcast. I am Cheri Bant, and this episode is titled From Crazy to Consistent. Okay, I just have a couple questions before I dig in here. Do you ever feel like your days kind of just get away from you? We used to make a sign at our sign studio that was chaos coordinator. Do you ever feel like that's you? Like it's crazy and you kind of barely have a handle on it. Well, that's kind of what I want to talk about today. I'm going to share a little bit about myself. I want to talk about my transformation from honestly, being a hot mess when it came to my daily routine and how I live today, because I totally could have had the chaos coordinator tattooed somewhere on my body. And of course I have a lot of kids. If you haven't listened to one of my podcasts before or know my story, I have a lot of kids and we homeschool, so it's a little crazy anyway. But just for myself and for my days, yeah, hot mess was definitely a good description of that. Have you ever heard the saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Well, we're going to talk about that today and how that's not accurate. So yeah, that saying is definitely something that I always thought, but we're going to debunk it today. And I want to kind of give you a little glimpse when I talk about how my days used to be, what it was kind of like. And I'm really, honestly, one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast was that so I could document this for myself so that I can go back and listen to this occasionally so that I have a little reminder of what it was like. I would actually get up every morning, usually not the same time every morning. My husband, he had a pretty strict routine, or always has, for work, and I would somewhat follow that. But every morning I would wake up like uncomfortable, in pain, really achy, but always exhausted. I was always tired. So I started my days tired. Now, did that stop me? Absolutely not. I still got through my days, did all the things for the most part that I needed to get done. But I would start my day kind of, although I had a plan for school with the kids, aside from that, I kind of let the day happen. And I would just take breaks in between the happenings of the day. I don't know if that makes sense. I was always so tired that just sitting down and taking a moment of rest, like just sitting, doing the, give me a minute. That was something that I said a lot. Give me a minute, because I felt like I just didn't have the energy to do or to go. I would still do it. I would still go. I was kind of a bull, always have been. But yeah, I didn't have a routine. I would get up. I knew that I needed to get the kids started with their math. That's usually what we started with in the day. And I knew that, we had a schedule to stick to for school. But some days we would be done by noon. Other days we were still trucking at 4:00, and it was tough. And back before we moved here from Michigan, when I had the studio, I used to have an art studio, or a DIY art studio where people could come and make signs. I had to have a little bit more routine because it forced me to do that. I had schedules of classes and things like that we had to work around. So we had to make sure we got done with school by certain times. So for any of you out there who have a regular, 9 to 5 job, of course that puts you into a routine, right? But how do you find your evenings? Because for me, I kind of let life happen to me. I felt like I was chasing all the time. I hope, aside from my morning coffee, my afternoon coffee, my late afternoon coffee that I had on the regular basis, I really didn't have any habits. I know that sounds crazy. I had habits of over consuming food. That was a habit for me. Eating before I would go to bed, because that was the only way that I could go to sleep, because I really had a hard time relaxing and my mind was always racing. But I really didn't have a routine at all. I aside from just getting things started, I got things started and then the day would just happen to me. So I dealt a lot with feeling just overwhelmed, like I didn't have control. Like I was chasing all the things that I needed to get done instead of truly having a plan. And now the thing was, I it wasn't like I didn't want to. Even when I had the business, of course, I did all the things. I had a coach, I had a business coach. I understood what I needed to do in terms of planning for my day, and I used planners, and I love planners, by the way, keeping track of things, writing things down. But even that was kind of a hot mess. Like I would I would write stuff down. I would be fairly consistent on keeping track of things. And then I even used vision boards on how I wanted to do things, and I did all that. But really, what would happen is that would always turn into kind of being chaos. So, like, I still have some of my planners and my schedulers, even for planning for homeschool. And if I look at them, they're just a mess, guys. They're just a mess. And that's how my life always was. It was just always crazy. I felt like it was always crazy. I felt like I never had control over it. And I read all the books. Actually, I have The Compound Effect. That was fabulous book. I've mentioned this before. Darren Hardy, Compound Effect. I read this, and I actually read it and then listened to it again. And it's still, and I understood all the concepts in it as it applied to what I was doing for the business that I had at the time in my life. But I just really felt like I couldn't implement it. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense to you. And maybe I'm alone in this. Maybe I'm sharing this with you and this is completely foreign to you, but I have to believe that there are people out there who are trying to do stuff and you fall flat, and you try to do stuff and you fall flat. I had this like 3-week timeline, guys. 3 weeks was kind of like the magic number for me. When it came to my health, that was always that I can tell if I would have documented it, which I should have. 3 weeks was all I would last with most things. So, like I would start eating healthy. I remember when I had the MyFitnessPal app. I know probably some of you still have that on your phone, right? And I would keep track of all my calories. And that's when I was doing low carb and keeping track of my calories. And it would take me 20 minutes to get all of it in there before I could start eating. So I was tracking everything. I did that consistently. I would do it for like 3 weeks at a time. I would lose the water weight. And then I would just kind of like, life would happen, right? Life happens. Shit happens. Stuff comes up that, a car breaks down. You get a flat tire. One of the kids ends up being sick. You end up being sick. Maybe last minute changes to plans, all of those things. And then it kind of disrupts what you're doing, right? So then I won't say it's like falling off the wagon, because for me, it always seemed like something would happen that would kind of derail me, whether it be on the health journey or trying to keep consistent habits of like drinking enough water every day, making sure I'm getting enough sleep, that kind of stuff. And I just never seemed to be able to do it. So I felt like the old dog, right? I felt like maybe that isn't just, maybe it's just not me. And I kind of embraced the idea of, I'm somewhat of a creative person. And if you get around a lot of creative people, they're a little chaotic, right? So I embrace this idea that I'm just a creative. I'm a little crazy. The mind racing, not being able to sleep, feeling like I'm kind of not in control was just my creative personality type. I kind of owned it. But now, this is the thing. As I sit here, having started now it's been 10 or so months having started the plant-based journey, I'm definitely not the person that I was 10 months ago. I still have a tendency to be a little, crazy. I still, but not in the same way. I always felt like I would try a habit or try to do these things, and I would just, and I don't want to say fail, but that's exactly what I felt like. But having started on my plant-based journey, what ended up happening is within probably 3 weeks of doing this, and I've shared this before, within 3 weeks of, and when I talk about plant-based journey, I'm talking about whole food, plant-based, no oil. So eating whole food plants, little to no refined foods, some pastas, some non-oil breads, that kind of thing. I started on that journey with, really honestly, you can go back and watch the YouTube. I have from week 1 or like 2 or 3, maybe, I don't, like right away, I started documenting it. And then till week 34, I really had no idea what was going to happen. Didn't really have a plan. I just knew I was going to start with the food because that was what was kind of prescribed for me, and see if it would make me feel better, if I could overcome the health obstacles that I was faced and get rid of the excess weight, being morbidly obese. If I could lose some of it, then I knew I would feel better. But anyways, what happened within probably 3 weeks, 3 weeks. So we're going to go back to the 3 week thing, but this is on the other side, flipping that around. I had energy probably for the first time in since I was maybe 18. I was always fatigued. I was always tired. I always did everything tired. But anyways, I had the energy. So then eventually I started exercising. If you've been following along, I didn't do it at first. I did very little, and then I just built up. And I would just add as I could. But I consistently ate the food, and then I would add exercising as I could. So once the exercising came in, guys, the overwhelming racing thoughts, the what I thought was the crazy creative, the anxiety that I experienced, that all disappeared. I mean, I still have a little bit of the, oh, there's a butterfly kind of moments, but not near what I experienced before. It just felt like my brain could finally work. And I remember, thinking this is interesting because I had identified myself as that chaotic, crazy person, and I soon realized that that wasn't who I was at all. I wasn't that person. But because of how the state that my body was in, that state of probably, honestly, that state of disease and inflammation, I wanted to do the things, I wanted, and for those of you who are listening and not watching, I wanted to follow what was in the compound effects. I actually recently read, I'm going to hold this up too for any of you on video, watching video, Atomic Habits. That's a really good book. I do suggest it. But I recently finished that one, and it is good. But before I wanted to do all those things, I couldn't implement them. And I really think what ended up being the issue was I wasn't fueling my body right. So it was just always a battle, and the will never won. I would lose, right? So now the thing is, this is the thing. Now I consistently, because of the exercise, because of the diet, now that I can do all that, I find that I can go to bed. I go to bed regularly. I'm in bed by 9 o'clock every night. 9 o'clock, sometimes 8:45. I'm not even joking. Now, if I still had little kids, that would be very tough to do. My youngest is 8, and it's a little easier now. So if you have little ones at home, I get it. That's a little tougher. But I'm in bed by 9. I'm not exactly asleep by then, but I'm in bed winding down, doing the scroll on the social media. Not gonna lie, if you hear moaning, that's my dog in the background there too. She's laying on the bed. So I apologize for that. It's not me moaning, it's my dog. But anyways, doing a little scroll, and then I'm asleep. I'm out by 10, and then I'm up consistently by 6 every morning, and I'm up and I'm awake. I'm not tired. So I have that now. That started, the food, I'm consistent there. And then every morning I have a routine, and I never had if there's any dishes left in the sink, I finish those. I do, I have lemon water every morning. I get that ready. I put the dog's food in the dog bowl on the water, and it's really crazy how in just 10 months time, I went from really having no regular routine, living kind of chaotically, letting life control me instead of having any ability to have any control over it, to now consistently doing the same things every day. And honestly, I used to look at people like the person that I am now, and I kind of thought they were boring. I'm not going to lie. I thought, I don't know, routine is boring. But I have to tell you, I used to think that way because I couldn't do it. So I thought, well, that isn't the way I want to live. But I would take how things are today hands down over the way I was before. Because the thing is, what I've found is having that consistent routine of sleep and food and exercise and relaxation, and doing it the same time every day, I have found freedom in that. Because what else I've found is it gives me more freaking time. I'm not chasing my tail crazy with no plan. I consistently know what I do every day, the same times when I'm done with the kids with school. And, occasionally things come up. That's life, right? But having that consistency gives you more freedom. But this is the thing. This is the thing that's so interesting is I think there are so many people out there feeling like they just can't. They can't consistently do stuff. And what it probably comes down to is what's on your fork. It's how you're fueling your body. It's your body not being able to do the things that it can. Your brain not being able to function in the way that it should because you're not fueling your body appropriately. So if this is something, if you want more consistency in your life, if you want healthy habits, if you want to be able to feel better and not feel like crap and, not be all achy and in pain and cloudy headed and, having an inability to focus, then you need to reevaluate what's on your plate. Because the thing is, that very well may be the thing that is holding you back from the success that you want to have. And that's in all things, guys. It's not just health. It's in relationships. It's in, how you treat other people. It's in your happiness, your joy. Because the thing is, if you're always feeling like you're chasing, like I was before, because that was absolutely the person that I was, it was hard to not, it was hard to be optimistic. I was always pessimistic. And I always say I'm a realist, and I still kind of am. But it's really interesting. I'm becoming more of an optimist. And that was not the person that I was or thought that I ever could be before. So be open to the idea that you can teach a dog new tricks. Like I said before, that saying, that's not true. But you just have to be willing to try. And like I always say at the end of all of my podcasts here, don't be screwed by food. Eat whole food, plant-based, because that is going to allow you the ability to get away from the crazy and start being consistent. So I hope that this was helpful. If it was, share a little note with me, send me a message, maybe give me a review on the podcast, let me know. And I just know that there's hope in being able to change and transform into the person that you want to be. But it starts with what's on your fork. So anyway, thank you all for listening and following along. Thanks for, this being number 10 on the podcast. And if you've listened to all of them, I appreciate you. Share it with a friend if you think it would be helpful. Hop over there onto the forkfix.com website. Check out the latest blog. I did a blog on potatoes in your purse for this week. You got to check that out. And also, if I think I talked about this before, take that card challenge. Send a card to someone that you're thinking of. You can click the send out cards link that I have in the show notes here or on Instagram. Check it out in the bio. I have it there too. It really does help you to share a little love and bring more joy in your life. So anyway, again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and you have a blessed one. I will see you next week. Bye, everyone.